and welcome to this session. So today we are going to discuss specifications, particularly on specifications writing. So again, this is Engineer Ranjan Gurmi. So I have borrowed this slide from the GPPB TSO of the Department of Budget and Management. So GPPB stands for Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Office. So let me start with the definition of the specifications. The specifications are that portion of the contract documents consisting of the written requirements for materials, equipment, systems, standards, and workmanship for the work and performance of related services. So remember that last time we had dealt with the contract agreement, and that contract agreement shall be well defined. The terms and conditions are enumerated, and today the specification will have a great role of defining the terms and conditions of the contract, especially the workmanship, the materials, the equipment, standards that are set for the project. So identifying the need. Suggested basis for identifying needs. First, we have core functions of the end user unit in the organization. For example, we have the requesting implementing unit like the accounting section, the legal section, or the colleges in a university, or maybe an office, a supply office, dental or medical services, and the like. So basically, we need to define the core functions of the end user to have a full understanding of the functional requirement of the goods, services, or infrastructure to be procured. Number 2, we can have the historical data or the foreseen contingencies. So what does it mean? So we are just concerned with some of the drawbacks of the past procurement. Say for example, a certain equipment have been requested for a certain purpose, and as an experience, this certain equipment could not really address what is needed by the office. So those are some of the facts that we need to know historically. And the next, number 3, we have identified purpose or goals or major final outputs. So every unit in a certain organization has its purpose, goals, and major final output. So meaning there are certain deliveries that they need to achieve. Like for example, in a state university, a college may need to have a certain facilities like classrooms, laboratories, and other related facilities that is relevant to the curriculum. Or another example is a registrar's office needs an enrollment system that is feasible to fast track the enrollment process. Or an accounting office or finance office that needs a system that holds a reliable financial reports that could generate financial system of records and other relevant reports significant to audit. So Basically, that is related to the first requirement, the core function, and then the identified purpose goals or MFOs. And then number 4, the procuring entity's strategic plans. So, strategic plans are the reflection of the desired status of a certain organization after 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. So meaning, it is a long-term or a short-term or a medium-term plan. And then number 5, current supply inventory. Of course, this data shall support their identification of the need, especially so that we always determine what is really needed and what could be duplicated in the future. And then lastly, other maintenance and operating needs. So there are supplies, materials, or needs that can be mislooked. That is why, on the second suggested basis, can be a good reference to number 6, other maintenance and operating needs. So moving on to technical specifications, scope of work, and terms of reference. Of course, from the previous slide, enumerated are the needs, of course, that would come from the users or the stakeholders. So we need to consult the concerned offices as well as the delivering units. In developing the project requirements of the TS or the technical specifications, and then the scope of work, as well as the terms of reference, the procuring entity may engage the services of technical experts, whether in-house or consultants, to ensure that the requirements and the technical specifications, scope of work, and terms of reference are adequate to achieve the objectives of the particular procurement. So we need to set clear specifications in a way that it is generic and flexible, clear and unambiguous, and then reminder on reference to brand names. So of course, under the government procurement law of the Philippines, it is prohibited that we specify brand names. Say for example, you need to buy a paint, you cannot specify a certain brand such as Boysen or Davis or Rain or Shine. Similarly to other materials or equipment, like buying a vehicle, you cannot really specify the brand names. And then the specification should be updated where technology is taken into account. It also fits the actual requirements of the PMO or the end user. So how to write technical specifications? So first we have the functional specification. You can write it under functional description. So it is the description of the functions for which the goods are to be utilized. So this example is particular on goods. The ball pen is expected to write 1.5 kilometers of straight continuous lines. And then you can refer to the environmental interface. It refers to the environment in which the required functions are performed at the desired level. For example, The ball pen should write continuously for 1.5 kilometers on a notebook, but not necessarily on a whiteboard. We can also refer to the design. So it refers to the technical design or drawing of the goods being procured. For example, the ball pen should be comfortable to use by left-hand writers. So the requirement specification, every purchase requires some form of requirement specification no matter how simple. A requirement specification is a condition or capability that must be met or possessed by a system, product, service, result, or component to satisfy the end user's requirements. The specification is the heart of the procurement transaction. It defines client's needs. It tells buyer what to buy. It tells supplier what is required. It sets standards for quality. So when you are going to procure, you cannot just say a black ball pen, or you cannot just say tiles, because tiles can be specified as granite tiles, ceramic tiles, or vinyl tiles. So meaning, you must have to specify as much as you can to have or to delineate it from other similar products that the supplier could mislook. So meaning, you should not give the supplier a room for alternative that is beyond an alternative that is far beyond your requirement. So moving on, we have here types of specifications. Number 1, we have the functional. So it defines the purpose, duty, the role, or function. Then secondly, we have the performance, the capability, input or output criteria, performance characteristics. And then on the technical, it is the detailed physical characteristics. Moving on to example. See, first we have the functional specifications. Say we have here a purchase of vehicle. So as an example, when you purchase a vehicle, you can refer to the basic function of that vehicle or your basic requirement. Say, it is capable of conveying employees from residence to office and vice versa. And an example of consulting service, to conduct a green procurement training program for GPP BTSO recognized trainers. Now, with regards to that purchase of vehicle, you can easily comply, or a certain prospect bidder could easily comply with that requirement, because functional specifications are general statements referring to the function of your needed equipment or goods. Similarly, in consulting service, again, that example is a functional specifications wherein these are just general requirement on your needed consulting service. So basically, the requirement is more on green procurement training program. So this is capability this should be the capability of the prospect consultant. So next, performance specifications. So on the performance specifications, on the purchase of vehicle, as an example, we have capable of conveying 15 employees from residence to office and vice versa. Notice that in here, the capability of the vehicle is quantified. Okay, it is already quantified by the number. So similarly, on the consulting service, the number of training courses with the frequency is also specified. So as we move on to the performance specifications with that of the functional specifications, we are actually getting more details on the requirement. So next we have the technical specifications. Again, we use the same example for purchase of vehicle. It is now really on the detailed. So this is more on the technical specifications or the technical description of the needed vehicle. So enumerated on the example, we have specified seaters, 15 seats with specified 4 doors, and it should be 2-wheel drive, and the minimum engine displacement, say 2900 cc, and the engine should use petrol unleaded, and of course the color is already specified. And then for the consulting service, the technical specifications gives more emphasis on how to deliver your training activity. So it is more on reporting language. It should have English, and the format should use slides with MS PowerPoint, and the reports should be in MS Word compatible format. So moving on to this slide, here it is enumerated the major traps in the specification phase. Actually, these are some violations in writing the technical or the specification. So first, we are over specifying. So it just means that we do not specify unnecessary details like the manufacturer, and then the brand names, and then some components of your needed material. Like for example, you are going to buy a laptop or computer desktop. So you do not need to specify your processor like it should be Intel Pentium, or it should be Ryzen. Okay, actually you can specify it, but use the term equivalent. Say for example, you need 17-inch laptop with a performance equivalent to Intel Pentium Core i7 or equivalent. So you may use the term or equivalent to give chance to other brands that can perform similar or the same performance or can even exceed your requirement, but in a low cost. Okay, so that is on over specifying. Number 2, it is too vague or incomplete specifications. What do we mean by this? Say for example, you need to buy a signing pen, and then you just say signing pen. You cannot just say signing pen. So you can specify the point needle of that signing pen, and then you can also specify the color. Likewise for the printer inks. Okay, you cannot just say that you need an ink for your or ink cartridge for your printer, but also you may specify the color, and of course on the printer you need also to specify the code of that print cartridge, because it may not fit to your existing printer equipment. Okay, so another one, no focus on best value of money. Of course, this could be considered as a major trap in specification phase when we are talking about government procurement. Why? Because we are actually avoiding extravagant purchases that cannot be accommodated on the procurement law. So, number 3, an example is you need a vehicle, and then you suddenly specify specifications for a luxury car or a sports car maybe, wherein the prospect supplier have no choice but to deliver you an extravagant vehicle. So that is actually prohibited in government procurement unless you can justify those ones. So the concepts of specifications writing could be classified in 3 types. Say for goods, it is enough that you have your specifications. For consulting services, you need to establish the terms of reference to set the minimum standards and coverage of the services, as well as to avoid confusion on the terms of the contract. Similarly for infrastructure or civil works. So for infrastructure or civil works, we have here the statement of works, wherein all the specifications, the quantities or the coverage and the scope should be clearly defined. So moving on, the preparation of the terms of reference. The TOR is the prospective consultant's first and main introduction to the project. So this is more wider than that of the specifications. Hence, specifications is only part of the terms of reference. So it forms the basis for the preparations of clear and detailed proposals by the prospective consultant. So it should conduct a research if needed. The terms of reference should define the scope of work required and the responsibilities expected from the consultant. So it should be adequate and clear to minimize risk of ambiguities. So TOR again is more on consulting services. But in some cases, TOR is also applied to contracting services or civil works. So what would be the consequences of vague TOR? Unclear terms of reference requires suppliers to make assumptions. So therefore, if there could be an assumptions, there will be room for misdirections. That is one. So another effect or consequence for a vague TOR is it is difficult to evaluate, and then it can lead to less successful projects as the winning bidder might not provide what is really needed. Risk of disputes and claims as it might not be clear who is responsible for what. So therefore, the accountability for both parties should be clearly defined in the terms of reference. So moving on to costing, because costing would be part of the terms of reference. In parallel to the preparation of the terms of reference, the budget should be reviewed to ensure that the costing and the budget are aligned. So that is a basic requirement, the alignment of the budget and the costing, because what are you specifying in the TOR is what you expect to pay. And then the budget should include the following breakdown of costs. Number 1, consultant's fee, listed as number of working months, weeks, or days times fee per working month or week or day. We also have daily subsistence allowance multiplied by the number of days. And then we have the transportation cost, of course, that is part of the operations. And then other relevant costs like communication, printing, and rental fees. So moving on, we have here the content of the terms of reference. First, we have to indicate the rationale of the project by its background, and then the scope of work, of course, and then the deliverables. When we say deliverables, these are quantified expected outputs. And then we also have time frames, and then the client supports, the constraints, the reporting requirements, and then the key performance indicators. So let us define each of the content. So number 1, we have the background of the project. So it briefly describes the national context in which the specific consultancy project will operate. So it is more on sector concerned and its major characteristics. So under what sector? Is it on the legal sector, on the engineering sector, or education sector, or a private sector? So those should be characterized and specified. And then the socio-economic context and the institutional and organizational framework. So of course, that need is more on emphasizing the significance of the project or the services. And then of course, who are the stakeholders involved? And then of course, we need to enumerate the general and specific objectives of the consultancy project or the expected situation at the end of the project. And then next, the target beneficiaries. To continue, we have the background of the project should have sufficient information to form a clear picture of the setting for the consultancy. It must be able to explain the reasons for undertaking the project and why it is designed the way it is. So moving on to the scope of work. Of course, the scope of work should be SMART. Specific, measurable, accurate, realistic, and time-bounded. Preferably formulated to include time, place, and quantity. And then for the deliverables, as I have said, deliverables are quantified desired outputs. So it ensures that all the deliverables necessary for the achievement of the objectives are described. If possible, describe deliverables in time, location, quality, quantity. When, where, of what quantity, how much. So deliverable plus time frame. Deliverables is stated as an end result like report, project documents, or training. So another important content of the TOR is the time frame. So it states the proposed timing of the activities and the duration to which you expect a deliverable to be completed and submitted. And then state the total consultancy duration. And then state the expected total number of working days or Mondays. Another part of the content is the client support. So here, all resources and support the recipient, government, institution can provide to the consultant free of charge, like background information or information material. And then we have constraints. So in constraints, state clearly the restrictions, the limitation or the extent of responsibility or authority of the consultant. So this is a very important thing that you need to specify under constraints. So one of the possibilities that could arise from not clearly stating the restrictions is that there could be no takers for your consultancy services because of too much responsibility that is set in the TOR. Well, if you set a too much responsibility, of course, what your provider or prospect bidder would think. Of course, as an end result, they would find your TOR unrealistic for the compensation you are setting. So the constraint, it should be conveyed at the onset of the project so to avoid risk of disputes. So again, the constraints is for avoidance of the risk of disputes wherein it could lead to misunderstanding and unsuccessful contract. So what we are trying to avoid is some some vague statements could be contested by your provider or your consultant. So moving on, we have here, of course, the reporting requirements. So these requirements could become part of the basis of your payment to your consultant. So it contains the list of reports and the time wanted. So include requirements such as contents, number of copies, language, who should receive the reports, and whether they should be submitted electronically, in hard copy, or both. Example is inception report, mission reports, technical reports, draft final report, and then the presentation material. So moving on, we also have the key performance indicators. This manner or method of evaluating performance. So here, the rating scale is to be used. So we also have the criteria for required passing rate, and then when and how often it shall be conducted. So in here we have the sample terms of reference. So this is a term of reference for capacity development consultant. So as for the background of the project, of course, you wanted to mention the rationale. Of course, that improve the government's capacity in developing environmental friendly energy systems in accordance with the overall Green Energy 2015 program goals. And then for each scope of work, to conduct a green energy TOT program for 75 staff in 3 ministries. So on the scope of work, all the activities are actually quantified at different or at a specified place for the activity. And then the deliverable or time frame. First, we have competency assessment documented in inception report. So this is one deliverable. And then develop training course modules to be submitted within a month from submission of inception report. And then complete 3 TOT training courses within 1 month from submission of training course material of 1 week duration, and conduct post-training competency tests, all documented in the final report. So here it is SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bounded. And as for the client support of this sample TOR, consultant shall be provided a copy of the agency's existing training materials as reference. Training room facilities for the training courses shall be provided. And then as a sample under constraints, all developed materials relative to the project are strictly confidential and are not to be shared with the public. So this is a confidentiality clause wherein the consultant cannot share the material. So this is a confidentiality clause as a constraint for the consultant. Then reporting requirements. Inception and final report shall be submitted in MS Word compatible format, submitted in soft and hard copies. So the report here has a technical specifications with regards to the format of the report. And then the training module submitted in soft and hard copies. So 2 copies for every deliverable. And finally, for the key performance indicators, all 75 staff trained within 3 months. Average training satisfactory rate among participants should be minimum of 3 from a scale of 1 to 5. So this is a criteria actually pertaining to the quality of training. So the training or the feedback the satisfactory or the satisfaction survey should be minimum of 3. And then 70% of staff to pass the green energy exam. So those are the key performance indicator. So KPI are quantified and specific in terms of quality. So at this moment, I would like to present to you a sample terms of reference for design and build services. So this is a template wherein the first page contains the project title, of course, design and construction of blank. Then under project description, number 1, we have the background and rationale. So we have here the statement, a general statement under general context up to the specific one. Okay, so the batch or the program in here is also specified. Okay, and it is mentioned here that the college administration has to continue providing the physical infra and environment conducive to learning and the realization of each student's achievement potential. It is also stated the location of the institution. Okay, so here it is specified that it is expected to grow and flourish. Okay, so the blank starts offering herself as an alternative regional center to the already very crowded blank places here. So this project is one of the blank administration initiatives to provide the physical infrastructure and environment for higher education that is appropriate and relevant in a young, growing, progressive regional center. So the specific objectives. So first, to come up with a detailed architectural and engineering design of a 4-story academic building conforming with the conceptual design and performance parameters and requirements presented in this document and having the lowest cost per usable space. So this term of reference, though the institution resorted to design and build scheme, the concept should still come or should still emanate from the institution. So usable space is defined as the sum of the areas of all classrooms, offices, faculty, lounges, meeting rooms, comfort room, toilet and bathroom, corridors, etc. Okay, then we have here the elevator. Okay, so the given conceptual design provided in the drawing CD1 Annex C. And then the calculated usable space is specified in square meters as well as the budget to construct the first phase of the building. Okay, as for the conceptual design, the CD present a ground floor layout, okay, typical upper floor layout. Alternative floor layouts may be proposed by the contractor, but again, a minimum usable space is specified in square meters. Shall be maintained. The following shall serve as the minimum space allotment requirements. So here, we have the detailed requirements per floor level. Okay, so we have here the minimum size of the standard classroom, 9 by 7. So it shall be furnished with student chairs, teacher's desk, and a combined 4-meter wide whiteboard and green board. And then here we have moot court room. So this is actually a requirement for a college of law that can also be used as a classroom with complete furniture. So actually this project is more on college of law. So one faculty office, okay, so the spaces are, or the dimensions are specified, as well as the needed fixtures of the facility. Similarly, we also have technical specification and description of the work, okay, for the conceptual design to adhere with. For the second floor, we have again standard classroom sizes with the required fixtures and furnitures. And then of course here we have the utilities such as restrooms. So as the third floor level and the fourth floor level. So on the provision we have also elevator. Okay, so on that elevator, the capacity of elevator is also specified. Okay, so another provision, all rooms except restrooms, toilet, and shower areas shall be air conditioned. Okay, so we have also project components. So the project components specified the required standards to be complied with. We have the National Building Code, Accessibility Law, Structural Code of the Philippines, and the like. So under the project components, we have the pre-detailed engineering design. So the scope of the contractor here, or the design and builder, should conduct site inspection and geotechnical investigation. Of course, when you design a building, you need to have the soil parameters or the strength of the supporting soil. So that could be attained when you conduct geotechnical investigation. Okay, so again, this is specified in the terms of reference. Okay, and then we also have preliminary investigations and inspection. So the topography, okay, is it susceptible to panding with surface runoff and the non-existence of any utility lines. Of course, when you excavate, you need to have the reconnaissance of the site, whether there would be an existing structures on the site, existing pipelines, existing electrical lines, and the like. Okay, so based on excavations, of course, this is a description or a site condition that is serving as information for the prospective bidders. So based on the excavations in previous and ongoing building projects around the vicinity of the site, subsurface soil layers are composed of soft soil upper layer with thickness down to around 2 meters. Of course, This is based on the evaluation of the implementing unit of the institution. Okay, at least they have a preliminary information regarding the site in terms of the supporting soil. Okay, so we also have design development drawings. So preparation of this drawing shall be based on the conceptual design drawings and the design performance parameters and specifications prepared by the institution. So we have another reference, Annex B. Okay, so the design development drawings for submission as part of contractor's proposal shall include the following. So we have another terms here, annex to support the details on the requirements of architectural design development plans. So it is noted here that all of the plans should be signed and sealed by appropriate professionals. Okay. So calculated usable space is again specified and should not be less than blank square meters. Okay. So these are the provision. The calculated bid shall be computed as total construction cost of the proposed academic building divided by this. Okay, so meaning the unit that should be adopted is price per square meter. Okay, because we have the construction cost divided by the square meter, so we are referring to peso per square meter. Okay, so and some other relevant information and provisions. Okay, so here it is also stated, actually these provisions are also based on RA 9184 or the revised IRR implementing rules and regulations of the RA 9184. Okay. So on the construction, it also have or set some of the references for the construction. Of course, we are referring to RA 9184. We have the Annex E and then Annex G of RA 9184. Okay, so again, majority of these clauses are called from RA 9184, Annex E and Annex G. So like when we have a provisions for change orders, and then the document submission, the modification in design, okay, variation orders, and the provision if there will be a delay, and of course the payment. Okay, so all of this will be defined in the terms of reference, and of course, as mentioned a while ago, the terms of reference should also contain who are the involved persons and of course the contact persons. Okay, so here we have the eligibility requirements. Again, these basic requirements are called from RA 9184, and of course for a consultancy service you need also to set the qualification of the needed key personnel that would be involved in the project. Okay, so in this terms of reference, we have the project coordinator and then the needed years of experience. Okay, and then the qualifications, superb oral and written communication skills. So the architect should be proficient in the AutoCAD, preferably at least 5 years experience. Then it should be licensed architect as well as structural engineer. So in this case, it is specified that the structural engineer must be a PhD degree holder or master's degree holder. Okay? Or at least should be recognized as ASEP member or uh, recognized structural engineer by PICE. ASEP is Association of Structural Engineers of the Philippines. And then we have also qualifications for the geotechnical engineer and then the electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, all the needed manpower in this design and build service. Of course, the approved budget for contract is specified. Again, we would like to emphasize that the budget and the costing in the terms of reference should be aligned. And as for the time frame, we have here the design and construction schedule. All of the activities are specified with the corresponding timing in months. Okay. So here we also have the occupancy permit should be one of the requirement for the contractor. So we also have here minimum requirements for construction safety and health. Okay, wherein the contractor shall designate a safety engineer to supervise and ensure the safety of all the workers. Okay, so these are the dues or the obligations of the contractor in terms of construction safety and health. Okay, so this is a detailed example of the terms of reference for a design and build reference. So let me present to you another sample. In here, this is an attachment of the mother terms of reference. This is an annex or performance parameter and specifications for architectural design parameters and specifications. So in here, the codes and standards are set, the laws and codes that could serve as the reference, and the general drawing guidelines. Okay, so if we read this one, all drawings shall be computer aided. Okay, and then keep the same orientation for all plans, the north orientation, and then the existing buildings and the new works shall be clearly indicated and labeled in the site plans, and then the required scale, spot detail scale, elevations, sections. Okay, the site plans shall have a scale not smaller than 1:400. And the floor plans, okay. So all of the requirement in the drawings are specified with respect to the architectural plans. Okay. We also have here stairs and ramps. So as we can see in the stairs and ramps, we have standard for slope should not be higher than 1:12, and then shall conform with the requirements of BP 344. So this is the ramp for PWDs actually. And then the corridors, spaces, electrical, plumbing, fixtures, accessories, roofing works, painting, furnitures and fixtures, okay, and other details. So here we have the summary of materials, okay. We have should be fire resistant, non-toxic, moisture resistant, and termite resistant. With fiber cement board, light gauge steel frame, PVC ceiling panels, etc. Okay. So for the drawing requirements, see attached blank checklist of drawings. So let me present to you a sample checklist of drawings. So it's good here that this annex should provide a uniform or standard for the drawings under architectural design. Of course, those are summarized, and the sheet number. Okay. So basically, what is needed on the sheet number are specified on the sheet contents, as well as the minimum scale that should be used. So we also have a drawing checklist for structural design. Okay. And of course in here, it not only contains the sheet but also the analysis and design, the geotechnical drilling results, the seismic analysis, structural technical specs, scope of work, and the bill of quantities. So again, this terms of reference is for design and build services. So therefore, the design plans should emanate from the consultant. Okay, so we have here a complete checklist for the drawings. Okay, so let me also present here a sample TOR for construction. So a while ago we have the design and build services. So in here we have the construction, meaning the provider or the plan should emanate from the institution, and then the role of the contractor is just simply to construct the project. So here is a sample. Of course you wanted to place your logo here, and then the header, and then here the terms of reference and the title of the project. So we have, again, we have the background, then the project description, the location, the project name, floor area, and the end users. And then the objective of the terms of reference, then the role of contractor. Then here we have the general conditions. Okay, so in here, under the role of contractor, of course, there is a provision that contractor should meet the deadline. Okay. So the general conditions, the contractor shall supply labor, materials, and equipment necessary for the blank project. And then for the activities, of course, the contractor is obligated to designate a project engineer. Okay. So what are the roles? Of course, document, schedule, oversee, and monitor the day-to-day construction works. Coordinate, address, and resolve all concerns of nearby buildings and structures relative to the construction. Okay. Conduct a project status meeting every Friday with the implementing unit. Normally, it is the infrastructure unit for State University. So again, as mentioned, We have support services. The contractor shall prepare the revised major modifications or changes in the design after the approval of the proponent during the implementation, if any. So for progress report, so contractor shall also provide the progress report like weekly and monthly accomplishment with the photographs and S-curves, okay, to support their billing, of course. Then the turnover of the completed project. So again, some of the provisions are adapted from the RA 9184. And then, of course, post-construction documentation. So this is a very important one, especially for projects under phases, no? So the documentation should include architectural, floor layout, civil design, electrical, of the finished or accomplished items in the contract. So this is what we call as-built plans. So again, the specifics on documentation, especially on the plans, are also enumerated here. The required scale, the required format, and the required hard copies in blueprint, number of blueprints, number of sets for soft copies, and then of course the acquisition of the certificate of occupancy, as well as other clearances required by the project. Okay, we also have here the provisions for storage and material handling. Then the clearing of site. So this is a very important provision. If you can see, this pertains to the workmanship of your contractor. So the contractor shall clean the whole area by removing debris, discards, paint spots, excesses, and spillage, and shall leave the entire premises free from rubbish caused by their work to the satisfaction of the blank at no extra cost. Okay. So we also have the warranties of the contractor. And then the terms of payment. So actually here it is also adapted in the RA 9184. There is also provision for advance payment. Okay. And then the retention of money or retention fund to cover the defects liability period under the provision of our procurement law. Okay. So we also have here the table, the matrix for the progress billing. So in here, in the first billing, you should have 30% of the work accomplished before you can file for billing or a progress billing. So for the preceding progress billing, so it should have above or equal to 50% of the work accomplished. Okay. So we also have provisions for pre-termination of contract. And then the scope of work and coverage of the project with specification. We have here C, the scope of works. Okay, so here's the sample of the TOR for construction. And so at this point, I would like to introduce also a technical specifications that are in narrative form, especially on particular scope of works. Say letter A, we have earthworks. Then from the excavation, actually these narratives are about the construction methods. Okay, so for excavation, structural excavation shall be carried out to the depth indicated in the drawings and shall extend to a sufficient distance from the walls and footing to allow for the proper erection and dismantling of forms and inspection. As we can see here, this narrative shall also contain the instruction, okay, the detailed instruction on the placing of forms and the pouring of concrete, okay, and of course mentions about the supervisor. So these technical specs are also concerned to some requirements of measurements with regards to the trench on excavation. So similarly, we also have backfilling. So we have here a important provision: backfill shall be placed in layers not more than 30 centimeter thick. Okay, so we cannot just backfill the material beyond 30 centimeter that is not compacted. So therefore, actually the reference of this one is from the blue book of your DPWH, wherein the certain layers of backfill should be compacted in every at least 30 centimeter thick. So backfill shall not be placed to cover foundation structures that have not been inspected. Okay, so this is an important thing that you will have to subject for inspection before you are going to backfill certain structural element like footing and then tie beams and the like. Okay, so another item here is we have the fill. Selected fill under floor slab shall consist of pit-run gravel, disintegrated rock, sand, or other similar materials. So here it specifies about the material on the person passing on the sieve. Okay, I think you are quite familiar with the sieve analysis in your geotechnical or soil mechanics. Okay, so the sizes of the granules or the fine-grained materials. And if we have granular fill, capillarity water barrier under floor slab shall be placed where specified and indicated in the drawings or directed by the project engineer. Okay, so again, the percentage passing from the sieve specified here. Then there are provisions for placing. So before placing filling materials, the surface upon which is to rest shall be cleaned of all brushes, roots, organic matters, debris, and thoroughly watered to ensure good bonding between the ground and the fill materials. Fill in contact with new concrete work shall be placed until at least 48 hours after removal of forms and the concrete has been inspected. Okay. So for soil poisoning, the required materials are normally chlordane, dieldrin, aldrin, or Alentrec brand. So the application, so poisoning treatment shall be applied in accordance with precautions and instructions on the label or as directed by the project engineer in the following minimum requirements. So you can see in these terms or technical specification, we will have the required gallons per square foot, okay, for under slab on fill, along the perimeter of the slab and under expansion of joints. So we can see that we normally place 10 square foot as overall treatment. Okay, 3 gallons per 10 square foot. So 3 over 10 gallons per square foot. So that is the ratio for under slab on fill. And then expansion joints, we have this requirement 4 gallons per 5 linear feet. And then if necessary, we have to place also treatment for foundation and footing at 4 gallons per 5 linear feet per foot of depth from finished grade line on top perimeter footing in a strip 1 foot wide. Okay. So the item concrete are normally based on the ACI code or the National Structural Code of the Philippines as well as ASTM. Okay. So we have here the provisions for composition. Okay. So if necessary, admixtures could be also mixed upon approval by the project engineer or architect. So these admix are also dependent on the designer. Okay. So the design of concrete mixtures and consistency shall be as specified in this section. So we have here the cement, water, and then RC. Okay, so on RC, the splices will be based on the provisions of ACI 318-77. On other terms of reference or technical specifications, the splice length are already specified, in particular structural element with the corresponding various bar sizes. Okay. And then we also have here the provisions for fine aggregates. So this is based on ASTM C-33. Shall consist of hard, durable, uncoated particles free from injurious amounts of flaky particles, shale, alkali, organic matter, loam, or other deleterious substances. Foreign materials must be removed by adequate processing. Okay, again, for fine aggregates, shall from coarse to fine and have the gradation requirements. Okay, and the fineness module requirement, the fine aggregates. And then also the coarse aggregates standards are set, okay, by ASTM C-33 also. So it shall consist of crushed stones, gravel, or other approved material of similar properties or combination thereof. Okay, having clean, hard, strong, durable, and uncoated particles free from injurious amounts of flaky particles, shale, and foreign materials must be removed by adequate processing. So the maximum size of coarse aggregate shall be 40 millimeter diameter. So in some cases, specified especially in the design mix, on the design especially when your stirrups are so confined, you need to have smaller diameter of coarse aggregates. So normally it is 3/4 in size or around 20 millimeter, okay, minimum, so that we can avoid honeycombing on the pouring of your RC elements. Okay, so on the technical specification, it also contains or includes the proportioning of concrete mixture for Class A mix and for Class B mixture. But in the scope of work, certain class must be selected or specified for a certain structural element. Okay, so this is just a reference for the proportioning of mixture whenever it is class A or class B. So aggregate content. Concrete mixture shall be designed to use the largest size and maximum amount of coarse aggregate as practicable for the intended use of the concrete. Okay. So we also have the provisions of conveying and placing of concrete. Then the curing provisions. Then the masonry rough works. Okay, the required compressive strength specified. So it should not be less than 25 kilogram per square meter or square centimeter. Okay, so the proportioning of the mortar is also here. 3 parts of thin coarse and fine aggregates with only sufficient water to make a workable mixture will be permitted. Okay, so we also have the provision for the erection of masonry rough works. So of course, the masonry or the walls should be vertically and horizontally aligned. Okay, that can be attained by its plumbedness, the level, the accuracy of the spacing. Okay, and of course the reinforcement of the wall. Normally it is in every 3 layers. Okay, in every 3 layers at every 0.6 vertically. So that is the normal reinforcement of our hollow blocks. Okay, we also have different provisions on cement plaster finish. And then the carpentry and joinery works. So normally the format is we start with the general provisions, and then followed by the materials, okay, and then the kinds of carpentry and the instructions. So these are the normal format of the technical specification of construction works. So from general, the materials, and then the instructions, as well as the type of that scope of work. Okay, so I think I'll just have to share this with you so that you can also explore this material. So for the remaining time, I think we should have to access an activity for today with regards to specifications writing and terms of reference writing. So with this, I'd like to end my lecture, and have a good day, class.